Today, we are breaking down the best and worst performances from college football week number 13. This is going to be a late episode. Dexter has continued to destroy my free time schedule. It's y'all's fault. Y'all put me onto it, but we're getting right into this if you guys want to see this every single week. I've been doing it every single week except last one, but that didn't mean that the Patreon supporters who get to see this list plus an extended version that has every single player that I thought did well or poorly in a NFL translatable game, well, they ended up still seeing everything there. So feel free to go check it out. The Patreon's $5 a month. You get that. You get stock report, rookie watch. You get all of my draft evaluations, my big board, all of that. So we built up a great community over there, over 70 people who are part of that squad. So thank you guys so much for making that because we just started it this year, just this season. So you guys have been great. Let's get into this, starting out with the superstars of the week in no particular order. Even though technically Devin Marshall would have been the number one of the week, he is here at our first superstar, cornerback out of NC State. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. I really liked another NC State defensive back coming into this year, Jackson Vick. He had another very good game as well, but nothing comes close to this man right here who came out of nowhere. Like, no one's talking about this guy. This performance is irreplicable, though. You don't see this ever in college. A 90 defensive grade. So I'm not saying that's the part that's crazy. We do see some corners with it, but targeted 14 times versus Florida State, allowing 4 receptions for 68 yards. You might be like, well, that kind of happens. 14 targets. I mean, sometimes you wonder about that. But listen to this. 2 interceptions. Okay. Hold your horses. I've never seen this number. 7 pass breakups. I am jaw-dropped when I see 4. This motherfucker damn near lapped that. 7 pass breakups. So quickly to recap it, 90 defensive grade, 4 receptions on 14 targets for 68 yards, 2 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups. Holy shit. Definitely somebody who needs to be watched right now in all 22. Pretty poor timing because, Thanksgiving is, in a couple of days and I'm going to be out with family, but I'm going to bring my computer and I'm going to watch this man. I'm going to tell you all about him. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably do either a mock draft or just a mock the mock and maybe discuss him over the weekend. So stay tuned for that. But next we have Martell Height, cornerback out of Vanderbilt. The cornerbacks are going off this week. But he had a 94 defensive grade, and he was targeted 4 times, allowing 0 receptions, so 0 yards, 2 interceptions, and a pass breakup. That's amazing. He did that in 17 reps. Total, not 17 coverage reps, 17 total reps. Brother was on the field for less reps than you have fingers and toes, and he somehow ended up getting 2 interceptions and a pass breakup. Ridiculous. Shout out to Martell Height. He's a true junior, if I'm not mistaken. He at least is listed with only 3 years of college D1 experience. So we'll see what happens if he ends up coming out or not. But definitely a name to watch. That game came out of nowhere. Martell Height, cornerback out of Vanderbilt. Then, of course, Diego Pavia is back. He's been super exciting this year. He's taken a huge step up. I don't know if it really means much in terms of NFL translatability, but he's certainly a gadget that has shown so much development compared to where he was in preseason, where I still thought he was very fun. 32 completions on 38 throws, 469 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception with 3 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play versus Kentucky. On top of that, on the ground, 12 carries, 63 yards, and a touchdown with 2 missed tackles forced. So, I mean, again, you're talking about this grand total of, over 500 yards through the air and on the ground and 5 touchdowns with only 1 turnover-worthy play. That is impeccable because this is not versus, Ball Sack University. This is versus Kentucky, right? And we're going to talk about another player from Kentucky that I kind of like coming into the season who got absolutely battered and fried by Vanderbilt. Let's talk about our next player, Cameron Hamilton, defensive lineman / edge rusher out of Tulane, 6'4", 292. He looks like he's actually lost a little bit of weight, or else he recomped, because I saw a picture of him last year. He looked a bit more chubby. So he's looking like he's getting in good shape. That's great to see. And he ended up having a fantastic performance this past week. 77 defensive grade, 10 pressures, and 2 defensive stops. I don't think it's going to amount to very much, but I'm a big fan of the Broncos for this episode for some reason. Dream Fit's not something you take too seriously, but it's definitely something I'd be intrigued with. Cameron Hamilton, Definitely a name to watch. Never have seen his name pop up this year. But that's why I do the series, because you're like, who the hell is this? And it turns out maybe they're a really damn good player. Jeremiah Love, you guys already knew this was going to be part of this list. This dude had 8 damn carries. He didn't even have a reception. So he had 8 total touches for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. Only 1 missed tackle force. So it is very heavily on Syracuse's defense and Jeremiah Love's vision over him necessarily, making guys miss and such and creating after contact. But still phenomenal. I mean, this is not, again, versus Ball Sack State University. This is versus Syracuse, like a legitimate school. Now, is it a super competitive school? Debatable. But, I mean, it's not really debatable. They're not that good. But still, there are teams that play FCS, D2, etc. This is not that. So, Jeremiah Love, I do think he'll end up going in the top 20 at this point. It's pretty much locked in. Some people want to put him up there above Genty and Hampton from last year. I'm not there. I reevaluated him, and he's close, but I didn't get to that degree. I mean, he's very, very good. Do not get me wrong, but I do think the other backs maybe had a little bit more to their game. LJ Martin is next, running back out of BYU. This man went off this past week. He was a fun running back to watch. I didn't see really much NFL translatability, but he's gotten really, really good this year in terms of polishing up his game. And again, you see the Broncos right there. I don't know why. I just think he'd be such a good compliment to RJ Harvey. So LJ Martin and RJ Harvey, 1-2 punch. 32 carries, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This is the number I really love right here. 12 missed tackles forced. Now, I know it's not crazy per touch, but it's still good to see over a large workload that he can do that. On top of that, he was targeted 3 times, got 3 receptions for 44 yards, grand total 35 touches for 266 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yes, I do calculate that while I'm talking to you guys. But yeah, great performance there for LJ Martin. Todd McShay was hyping him up too. This is definitely somebody who will be going in the draft, possibly day 3, possibly late day 2, depending on if he can continue this type of resurgence. Now let's talk about the rest of the stock up guys. We have 2 groups in the normal stars of the week list. Sebastian Harsh, edge rusher for NC State, is first. He ended up having a 78 defensive grade with 9 pressures and 3 defensive stops. NC State was killing it, because then on the offensive side, Jacarius Peak ended up having a 90 pass blocking grade with 0 pressures allowed. If you guys know anything about this series, the players who make the video, or at least are like determined for it, maybe I have too many guys and you have to slice some dudes off, but offensive lineman, it's like a 90 pass blocking grade and above will land you on this list. Otherwise, you'll end up just being part of the extended list. So definitely want to give shout outs to where guys deserve it. And Jacarius Peak has been phenomenal this year. It's definitely somebody to keep your eye out on late day 2. Akeem Mesidor, he's been damn consistent this whole year long. 81 defensive grade, 8 pressures, a stop, and a forced fumble. Standard business there for Akeem. Then we're also talking about Eli Bowen again. Ended up having a fantastic game versus Alabama. Ends up coming back again. 75 defensive grade, targeted 3 times, allowing 0 receptions and having an interception. So really good performance there. In most weeks, I would end up actually putting that probably as somebody who is a superstar of the week. Whenever you get to play a full game and not allow a single reception and get a big impact play like that, it's usually a superstar-worthy play. Caden Curry's next. We're actually going to talk about 3 Ohio State players in a row. But Caden Curry, 92 defensive grade, 3 pressures, 5 stops, a forced fumble, and he was targeted 1 time for a reception for 0 yards. But again, we aren't really caring too much about that. But still, fantastic performance there. Davison Igbinosa, 90 defensive grade, targeted twice, allowing 0 receptions and having a pass breakup. And Ohio State ended up doing a good job even without Carnell as well as Jeremiah. But the thing is, nobody stepped up the way that Max Clare did, the tight end for Ohio State University. He was targeted 8 times, getting 7 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. That is fantastic. First off, tight ends getting over 100 yards, always commendable. But secondly, and more importantly, the focus was on him, right? I mean, you're losing your 2 top targets, and it does feel like Ohio State is kind of lacking that 3rd best receiver right now. Like Ennis, in my opinion, hasn't really shown out to be that way. So a tight end right now is super crucial to take a step forward. And Max Clare, especially in a pretty convoluted tight end class, He's making the right moves at the right time. So I love seeing that. Caleb Tiernan, once again, another 90 pass blocking grade and 0 pressures allowed. He is a top 5 player for me in this class. That's just me. I know for most people, he is looked at as a pure day 2 to day 3 option, but we're starting to see him tossed in at the late first for some people. And I'm glad that people are getting on that train. He's a damn good tackle. Colin Simmons is next, edge rusher out of Texas. 91 defensive grades, 6 pressures, 3 stops, and a forced fumble. Amazing performance there by Colin, which is just something we're getting used to. Arch Manning, though, really good performance himself. 18 out of 30 for 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 2 big time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, 2 carries, 5 yards, and a touchdown. So damn near 400 total yards and 5 total touchdowns. Super happy to see him finally getting his stride again. It's very clear he needs that extra year, but it is still good to see that he is making that progress. Now let's talk about the rest of the guys in our stars of the week. Trevor Gooseby, left tackle out of Texas, also on here. This is the week of left tackles getting 90 pass blocking grades with 0 pressures allowed. Good performance there in a really solid game to be able to show out. Jalen Stroman, defensive back out of Notre Dame. This one almost ended up making the superstars of the week. 92 defensive grade with a pressure, 6 defensive stops. That alone would get a defensive back on this list. But he's targeted 4 times, allowing 2 receptions for 0 yards and had an interception. Easily could have ended up being on the superstars of the list. So defensive backs for Notre Dame have just been going off lately, and it's not the same guy every time. It is somebody different almost every single time. Shout out to Notre Dame. Max Llewellyn, edge rusher out of Iowa, ended up having a great week in a very close game where Iowa ended up winning. He was a big reason why. 70 defensive grades, 7 pressures, and 2 defensive stops. Dylan Wade, tight end for UCF. Remember what I talked about with Max Clare when tight ends end up stepping up. It's something I'll notice. He stepped out big time. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 145 yards, and 2 touchdowns. As a tight end for UCF, incredible performance for Dylan Wade. Joe Jackson, running back out of Kansas State, also definitely could have been on the superstars of the week. There's just a certain point where you have to cut it off, but 24 carries, 293 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He ended up having 1 target for 1 reception and 19 yards as well, with 4 missed tackles forced. But yeah, near 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. If I'm going to be honest, he should have been on there on the superstars. This is a list that rewards everybody. Okay, you're hearing the same amount of information. But Joe Jackson, fantastic performance. Ja'Kirian Turner, running back out of Pittsburgh, also could have been on the superstars of the week. 22 carries, 251 yards, and a touchdown with a fumble. 8 missed tackles forced. That's the next guy I'm talking about. Ja'Kirian Turner had 20 carries for 200 yards and a touchdown with 8 missed tackles forced. He was targeted 4 times, got 4 receptions for 12 yards as well. So 24 touches, 212 yards, and a touchdown. Raleek Brown was the guy who I just mentioned his stats. 22 carries, 251 yards, and a touchdown with a fumble, but 8 missed tackles forced. Targeted twice, got 1 reception for 33 yards. So grand total, 23 touches for 284 yards and a touchdown. Fantastic performance from the running backs. Like back to back to back. All backs that could have ended up being superstars of the week. Matt Rose as well. This next guy could have been a superstar of the week. This list low-key is just a group of superstars because I have a lot of guys in here. So if you guys are wondering, I have the list of guys that I like, and I'll bold somebody who they deserve to be on the stars list. But I'll also italicize the players who I think could be superstars or like the super duds and the duds. So, Matt Rose, Raleek Brown, Ja'Kirian Turner, Joe Jackson, Jalen Stroman, and then Gabe Akis later. All these guys were italicized. So this is pretty much another list of the superstars of the week. But regardless, Matt Rose, 86 defensive grade, 2 pressures, 12 defensive stops, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 37 yards allowed. Again, linebackers, it's pretty tough to do well in coverage, but 12 defensive stops in a game that I believe Stanford ended up winning. It's a big reason why. If you can stuff the run, it's a big reason why. I did not see Matt Rose pop off in person, but at the same time, sometimes you got to look for those players. And I was trying to look a bunch of other players and see how everything was going. But Darrell Peterson, edge rusher out of Wisconsin's next. 79 defensive grades, 6 pressures, 3 of those being sacks, 4 defensive stops, and a forced fumble. Was targeted 1 time for a reception and 24 yards. Once again, Don't care about that for edge rushers. And then Gabe Akis, mentioned him, edge rush for Illinois, 82 defensive grades, 7 pressures, and 5 defensive stops with a forced fumble. Fantastic performance for Akis, who is putting together a solid end of the season slate exactly when he needs to pick up the momentum. Now let's talk about our duds of the week. Ethan Kaliak-Manis has just been on either the superstar or the biggest dud of the week for nearly half the season. I think that he has some awesome high tier games, but he also has such horrible inconsistency that I can't buy into him as an actual draft pick. But he ended up having 21 throws for 10 completions, 81 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 big time throws, 2 turnover worthy plays, 2 carries, 8 yards, and a fumble. That's unacceptable. I mean, simply put, you can't be on an NFL roster if you make a performance remotely like that. So, hate to say it, he had some flashes, but it's just a little bit scary to say the least. Let's talk about the rest of the stock down guys. Nico Yamaleava, this past week, I know that, there's definitely some things besides just purely his performance that ended up playing to the stat line, but 27 throws, 17 completions for 69 yards. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 1 big-time throw, 2 turnover-worthy plays, 4 carries, 31 yards, 1 missed tackle forced, and a fumble. So not a fan of that. Again, Nico, someone you'll be looking at for 2027. Dom Orange, once again, is on the down list. He's been very disappointing this year, unfortunately. I was hoping for him to be a bit better. He was not like ever my defensive interior, like 5 or 4 or 3 list. Pretty sure he was always like 8 or later. But it was someone who I really wanted to be more in love with his game. And he has some awesome moments, but the consistency just has not been there. 56 defensive grades, 0 production, 0 big time throw, or 0 stops, 0 pressures. You have to make some type of big play, and he did not. Deion Burks, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, he had 2 receptions on 8 targets for -2 yards and 1 carry for 2 yards. So grand total, 3 touches and 0 yards. Satania ended up having a fantastic day. So it is kind of just the differential between the two and people looking at Deion Burks as a 2nd round pick, where it's like maybe we need to reevaluate exactly how much value Deion's going to have. Again, not 100% his fault. There's obviously some restriction on the offense. Otherwise, I think we'd be seeing Mateer, if fully healthy, which I still don't think he is, but if he were fully healthy, I think we can end up seeing Mateer throwing in the 300-400 yard range, and then things would be different. Sawyer Robertson, quarterback out of Baylor, is next. Baylor got their ass whooped, belt to ass. 33 throws, 22 completions, 162 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 0 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays, 6 carries for 14 yards, and a rushing touchdown with a missed tackle forced. Yeah, when you get belt to ass and you can't have a big-time throw, got an issue there. Baylor had a really strong chance to make a really good push this year. Had a lot of guys who had a lot of talent returning, and they've had the playmakers that have popped off, and the consistency has not been there. Anthony Lucas, edge rusher out of USC, is next. 45 defensive grade and no production. So no big time or no pressures, no stops. And that's not good, especially in a loss. It's definitely not good. Jaden Mayava as well. He ended up having an okay performance, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of the amount of turnover-worthy plays / turnovers he's had. 43 throws, 25 completions, 306 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's, it is what it is. It's a solid performance. 2 big-time throws. Love that. 4 turnover-worthy plays. Not a fan of the negative ratio, especially a 2-to-1. Then you have 4 carries for 25 yards and a fumble with a missed tackle force. But again, when you have 4 turnover-worthy plays with a fumble in there, you need to be on this list, especially in a loss. Then you got Chandler Rivers, defensive back out of Duke. He ended up having a 61 defensive grade, had 2 defensive stops. The problem was he was targeted 6 times, allowing all 6 receptions for 46 yards. I only had 11 players who had an L or a losing grade this week. And all of them are on this list. 1 super dud and the rest duds. So Chandler was not really designated for this list, but I do want to at least call out the players who did get a losing grade. Jennings Dunker. I ended up saying Jennings Dunker, but Jennings Dunker, right tackle out of Iowa, allowed 3 pressures today, 65 pass blocking grade. Not a bad thing. Again, another player who is not destined for this list, but ended up making it due to the lack of players who really did have bad weeks that have actual stock. Then JQ Hardaway. He's the one who ended up being mentioned earlier. Player who I liked, a physical corner, but Ooh, this week he got toasted. 53 defensive grade, a defensive stop, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown allowed. Simply put, unacceptable. I mean, you have to have some type of positive in there. Preston Hodge, also not destined for the list, but he had the lowest grade on their defense, 37 defensive grade, a defensive stop, targeted 6 times, allowing 2 receptions for 24 yards. Again, just being the lowest graded player. But that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to get back to Dexter and kind of finish this up and maybe hit like a midnight workout. You got to do what you got to do. I know I'm going to be away from my gyms. Right now, I have 2 gym memberships, but that's just because they're overlapping. But don't remind me about that cost. But let's get it out of this. Let's have a good time. Have a happy Thanksgiving, y'all. I'm going to still record a couple of videos and then get those to you as well. But thank you again for the support you always show. Love you. See you later. Peace.